and it's not just one person, it's everybody contributes.
The majority of the feel of it is the community that's generated in all the people that are involved with it.
I think it's become, as you said, a family, a sort of village organisation thing. It's a thing which people look forward to. And for me, I just love to sit there and to see all the people entering, wow, and smiling.
And everyone just looks forward to it, and it's really quite sad that it won't, won't be happening. My name is Liz Bristowe, and I'm the daughter of George Dole, who really put forward the idea at first to have a Christmas tree festival in Hathern. My dad loved Christmas, and when he lived in Long Eaton, he became involved in a church that put on a Christmas tree festival. My dad went along with this because he loves lights and he loved decorations, and he was always making things when we were growing up for Christmas. So the church got quite heavily into this, the one in Long Eaton, and Dad used to dress up as Father Christmas and give chocolates to the children and etc., and really enjoyed doing it. He then moved to Hathern with my mum, Alice, and became a member of the PCC. And I think they were throwing around some fundraising ideas. And obviously Dad had been heavily involved with the Christmas Tree Festival in Long Eaton, so put it up as an idea, really. I think some people, from memory, some people were for it and some people weren't. But I think generally they just decided to try it as an idea. So obviously Dad and other people on the PCC got together and decided that they would go forward with this idea. Obviously it was a small start, but as we all know, the Christmas Tree Festival has grown from year to year, and I think it's one of the highlights of the village season, really. Everyone really looks forward to coming. It's a way of bringing people into the church. And my dad just loved it. He loved people's different ideas. He loved walking around and looking at the trees. And I think it's sort of a legacy of his, actually, that the Christmas Tree Festival is still going. And everybody so much, and everybody wants to be part of it. So it's lovely for me to go in when the tree festival is up, because it's really good memories of my dad. And I'm sure every Christmas he looks down from one of those trees and just marvels at the sight. Some of his trees that he originally made, some wooden trees that go into the windows in the church, are still used and to this day. So it's really nice, and it's lovely for me to go in there and see what he started, really, and to see that it's just going from strength to strength. So hopefully this tradition in Hathern will continue, and long may it continue. And as I say, I'm sure he looks down every Christmas and there's a big smile on his face.
Yes, I'm Rosemary Worsfold, and Shirley Henderson was a fellow church warden with me when we did the very first Christmas Tree Festival in 2004. And it was an idea that came from George, and we got one or two people together who were for it and ran with it. We've used to open on a Thursday, Friday and Saturday, and then decided later on in years that we'd only open Friday, Saturday and Sunday afternoon, because Thursday was low footfall. And then things came along, like David and Mary suggested a raffle, which everybody contributed to. And then Veronica Riley was involved in running a tombola. And it was all gifts that were donated by the people of Hathern and sold on the night, which made a lot of money as well.
We did start very early days with it being very amateurish, I think, in many ways. You could sort of see all the joins and so on and so forth. And over the years, we've managed to make it look a lot more magical by all the ladies doing wonderful tablecloths, all the blokes having the wires which looked hidden from view. And we've aimed to get a sort of magical forest when you can't see the joins.
On the very first Christmas Tree Festival, Shirley and I were hopeful of getting between £500 and £1,000. And on the Friday night, I remember taking the money home and counting it and ringing her up and saying, "We've already done 500, Shirley," and we were most excited. And it's grown from there. I've been a church warden through the whole thing, so I've seen them all, and it's just grown and grown all the time.
The past few years, we were averaging about £4,000. And then last year, because we had East Midlands on the television, we actually topped £5,000 for the first time ever, and we were very pleased with that. But for me, I think there's more to it than just raising money. I think it's become, as you said, a family, a sort of village organisation thing, a sort of thing which people look forward to. And for me, I just love to sit there and to see all the people entering, wow, and smiling. And in this day and age, I'm afraid to say, you don't go many places where you see people smiling. And I'm pleased to say that Hathern Church at Christmas is one of those places. We started the first year with 42 trees, and it's grown over the years, and the past few years it's been more than 100. In 2019 we counted about 115 lit trees.
Hello, my name's David Harbidge. I've been involved with the Hathern Christmas Tree Festival since the year dot. I guess my particular speciality, apart from general helping out in the clearing of the church, is in the decorations. After about the first year, we decided that it would be quite nice to have overhead decorations, and so we decided that we would string fishing line from one side of the church to the other. And fishing line is almost invisible, and the one we used it had a breaking strain of about 20 pounds. So we felt quite certain it would be strong enough to hold the weight of any decorations we put up. We found in the first few years, we found some shiny folding stars, which were quite nice, and we used those for a number of years. And as time went on, my wife and I spent a lot of money on other decorations, which we then hung up on the lines. One year we were in Copenhagen on holiday, and we were in quite a nice department store, and we saw a folding white star made of paper. And when you folded it out, it became a sort of 3D star. So we brought it back with us, and we hung in there some battery operated lights, and the star was then suspended in the arch of the church. And in the darkness, it really comes to life. It really looks very nice. In the same way, we also found, or we didn't find, Gill made a paper angel. I think she saw a pattern in a book and scaled it up to about 2 feet high, or maybe even more. And once again, we put lights up her skirt on a timer, so that as soon as it got dark, the lights came on. And it really gives a good effect down the whole length of the church. We also decorate the chandeliers by suspending various decorations from them, and that helps to give the overall impression of an absolutely brilliantly decorated church. One tree that I should mention is the tree that's made of balloons. It's mounted on the pulpit. It stands about 10 feet high. And there's probably 30 or 40 balloons in that. And once again, the lady who erects it puts lights in and around the balloons, and that gives a really good wow effect when anybody enters the church. We also decorate the porch. It's changed over the years into what we put into it, but it always includes some illuminations. We've had a star in there, and we had quite a nice neon sign a couple of years ago, until I think it went wrong, and then we dispensed with it. One of the guys in the village is an avid model maker, and his strength is making model fairground rides. A few years ago I recruited him, and he brought in a fairground ride, which I think was the Waltzers. He'd spent about 2 years making it, and every year since then he's managed to bring in a new ride, which are greatly admired by all adults and the children, of course, and that is absolutely splendid.
Yeah, next door to that is that I've veered away from Christmas trees now, so there is quite a big snowman that lives in the loft. I can't get him in my loft, so he's a lit up loft, and there's a Victorian lamp post, and then each year I add something like penguins and lit up penguins and polar bears and things like that, and presents. So there's a really good range, not just of trees. I think people are sort of starting to think sort of outside the box as well. So it's becoming a bit of a light sort of extravaganza. So I think everyone's sort of looking for ways that we can, move forward, as well as the basic trees which are there. So there's a really good mixture.
The painter and decorator always does his with paintbrushes and shade cards, etc. We have a plumber who often has done his Christmas tree in a toilet, or One year he put it in a bath and had a shower over it, not running, I hasten to add. The hairdresser used to do one, and we had a star made of combs, etc. And then there are people that do the same tree every year, and they are beautiful and they are just as important. The school will do a different one every year as well. So there's always something a bit the same, and there's always new.
It also includes the things like the funeral directors and people like that. Plus, the one year we had an upside down tree from Ozzy Ben, and he decorated it the wrong way around. So we get a real variety.
Well, my name's Gill Bennett. I'm on the church council, and I joined the group organising the Christmas Tree Festival right from the very start. The first year, as I said, was not as big, but the second and third and fourth year I started to make the tablecloths, and now we've got enough to cover everything. Veronica, Riley and Shirley were the ones that started the tombola, and when Shirley finished, Veronica carried on, and the amount of work she put into it and the amount of hours she spent getting the stuff ready for the tombola, I just can't believe. We started off, as I say, with about the highest amount of prizes we had one year was about over 900, which is £900. The average is about 800 prizes, which is brilliant. And you have to thank all the people in the village that actually donate all through the year. In fact, one year we were clearing up at the end of the festival, and somebody brought us some prizes for next year. The tombola will carry on, I think, but whether it will be so well organised, because Veronica now has retired, she can't cope with it any longer, but whether it will carry on, I don't know. But I don't think we can do without the tombola because of the amount of money that it has made over the years. I think we ought to mention also the lights that we put outside the church along the driveway. When you walk in, it's such a pleasure to see those alight. We started off with, I think I got the children at one of the do's we had to paint the jam jars, and we just had jam jars with the lighted candles inside, tea lights inside, but they kept blowing out, and John and Mary did the most work but now we have the electric ones, so that it's not quite as difficult.
When Gill mentions the candles down the drive, Mary and I first saw that done in a village in Italy. We brought the idea back with us, and as Gill says, the first year we put the candles into jam jars. The problem was, of course, that when the wind blew, it blew across the top of the jar and promptly blew the candles out. So I was running up and down the drive, relighting the candles continually.
My name is Jan Leivers, and my involvement with the Christmas Tree Festival was really part-time in the beginning, mostly helping serve teas and coffees. But once I retired in 2013, I became a fully fledged member of the committee, and particularly latterly, my focus has been on some of the children's activities that we do before Christmas Tree Festival. So the joy on children's faces is a big part of the Christmas Tree Festival, and their involvement is very important to us. And this is the small children as opposed to the big children. We have every week a group called the Junior Saints, which are primary school children who come into church for stories and craft and all sorts of different activities, but also as a learning environment to learn about the church and to learn about things that are important to us as Christians. So up to Christmas and through Advent, telling the Christmas story is really important, but we do that in a very active and creative way, and we make lots of decorations which we then decorate the main notice board in the south aisle, and we have a Christmas tree which is linked usually to whatever the theme is on the board, and we've had lots of different themes on the notice board. Like one year we did an advent calendar, another year it was about angels. Last year was quite interesting because it was about saving the world. We've been focusing on the environment, and so the notice board and the tree was all about saving the planet and appreciating God's wonderful earth. And the Christmas tree decorations were all handmade from recycled things. So lots of activities prior to Christmas Tree Festival. So that's very much a big part of what we were doing. And then obviously, as Rosemary mentioned, each of the classes in the school, and it used to be the staff at the school as well, used to put up a tree. Each class would have a different theme, and the support staff would come in before the actual festival and put the trees up. And then on the first day, on the Friday of the Christmas Tree Festival, in turn, each class would come in with their staff and have an open viewing of all the trees, and they'd race around all the trees to find where their tree was. And we'd also have to watch little hands and what they were doing, because quite often things can move when children have got to touch things all the time. So that's a big part of Friday, as well as the school choir singing in the morning.
The only thing about the school is obviously I was a teacher at the school when this first sort of came to at the beginning of the Christmas Tree Festival. So it was all a bit, I don't think the staff sort of knew quite what to do initially. We thought, what should we do? But then as the years went on, and it became quite competitive between the classes. So as teachers, we didn't really let on very quickly as to what we were doing, because we didn't want any other teacher or class to see what we were doing until it was actually up in the church, and then everybody, all the teachers used to go and look just to see, oh, well, that was a good idea. Oh, I should have thought of that. So it became a bit of a competition actually about how good each tree was. But and when we started the choir, I think I was the first one to bring the children up to sing. The kids, it was brilliant because the parents could come in and they listen, and I don't think many of them had they've sung in church, as a school, obviously, because obviously we have church services in there, but as a small group and listening in the middle of the trees. The actual choir, when we first started doing it, they just thought it was absolutely magical, because this was just something they had never ever done before, and they sang their hearts out, and they sang far better in the tree festival than they ever did when I was doing it in the school hall. So it's just got a magical feel to it. So I'm glad that's continued, and that tradition has continued, because it's been going a long time now, so that's really good.
The school are missing it so much this year that apparently they're having their own Christmas Tree Festival, and each class are going to do a tree in the hall, and each class is going to be taken in on their own, so they're in their own bubble to look at the trees, and they're having their own little Christmas Tree Festival down at school. Obviously we can't go, but the children are still taking part in that.
I think the important thing about the Christmas Tree Festival is that, it is about, for us, raising money. But as John said earlier on, it's become much more than that. It's become a community activity, something that everybody likes to be involved with. I think this year is going to be really missed, because for most of us, it's where the Christmas season begins. and with all the lights and so forth. And it's certainly for us at home, the moment when we put our own Christmas tree up and start the festive season. I think the only other thing I'd like to say is that right at the very top of the church, under the altar, is a little crib. And that's something that actually draws the children up to the altar. They go through this avenue of trees, and there at the very end is the crib. And we have to remember it is a church, and therefore that's a really important part of why some people come into the church. And the children love to get up there and look at the crib and ask questions about it and so forth. So it's been really important for everybody.
It's Tony Croft and my wife Anne. We've been involved in the latter years and really didn't appreciate how much hard work had gone into the Christmas Tree Festival and how much it takes to organise. And everybody who's been talking so far is involved not just in the aspects that they've spoken about, but in the overall setup. And looking after it's a real sort of community thing, a little community of people setting the whole thing up. And over the years, we've sort of developed into our own niches. And we've got a sort of work plan, because when we start, as you'll see when you look at the time lapse that Terry's produced, the church has got to be stripped out and then reassembled with tables, tablecloths, plugs, sockets, lights, overhead decorations, and it's quite an operation. I mean, we do trip over each other now and again, but it's just one of the way it works. And we always start out with a plan. And then Jen and I in the last few years have revised that. And whatever we plan, it all goes wrong, because you can guarantee that you've left space for a 3-foot tree and a 7-foot tree comes in at the very last minute. And so we've had to become very, very flexible in the way that we approach it. So you have an initial plan, but it never ever goes to plan. And you've got to be prepared for change right up until the very last tree. And it's become quite a bit of a job to try and get that number of trees in the spaces and leave space for people. And it's a lot of hard work, up and down ladders. We've had help from Morris over the years, who's used to going up very tall ladders to put some of the decorations up for us. And it's really been a team effort, and I think people have got to appreciate the amount of effort that goes into it. There's a lot of camaraderie there as well. And we have a lot of fun on the way. We eat a lot of stollen, drink an awful lot of tea and coffee, and have some good laughs on the way. And we have some heartaches as well, sometimes with bits and pieces, but generally there's a lovely atmosphere in church all the way through setup. Takedown's always a bit of a disappointment, because the church always then looks so bare. But overall, I'd say, I think it's been mentioned a few times, is the biggest prize is watching people's faces as they come through that door, and it just makes you swell with pride that it's a little village in northwest Leicestershire is able to give so much out in that way. And I think it's an absolute brilliant thing, and I think it's going to be sadly missed this year. And when East Midlands Today came last year, the reporter she could not believe what we'd achieved, and she only lives in Loughborough, but she had no idea. And as you've heard, that did us a lot of good in terms of numbers. But I think it's just the interaction of all the village organisations, all the businesses, including large and small, big companies like DHL involved. It's absolutely brilliant. And it's not just one person, it's everybody contributes. So I say everybody who's spoken today, plus a whole load of other people over the years, all have played a part in making it a success.
And I'm the hooverer.
Yeah.
When it's all finished at the end, I tend to go round with the hoover, with the help of others, obviously. But I'm usually the last in because Tony's bell ringing, so I sit and wait, usually with Gill from the tombola. And it's just magical when we're there by ourselves. It's really, really special. We'll get all emotional now because we're not doing it.
I'm Terry Cox. My involvement over the years has been helping to set up and take down the Christmas Tree Festival. One year, back in 2014, John Worsfold suggested to me that we could perhaps try to do a time lapse so that people would see in a few minutes what went on over several days of putting up the festival and taking it down again. I have the equipment, so I worked out where to put the camera, what the interval should be, and we just left it going. And quite honestly, I think it's magical. Put it together against Musica, Flight of the Bumblebee and Rondale the Turk, and in it itself is a standalone piece of entertainment. And I think it really shows everybody what goes on.
I'm Lauretta and I'm the team rector of the 6 churches of the benefice, of which Hathern is one. And I've been here for 5 years, so I've observed the Christmas Tree Festival over that time. And it's just a great example of how to put the fun into fundraising, really. Although it is about the money, which is really important, the majority of the feel of it is the community that's generated in all the people that are involved with it. And I think Liz is right, that's her dad's kind of legacy. That's what he would be so pleased to see. It's not just about the money, it's about the way that it brings people together. And it brings people together not only in the setting up of the festival, but in the interface from the church out to the community. That feels like a really important thing. And as people have mentioned, there's 2 services during this time. There's one where we have Holy Communion in the church when the trees are all up, and I'm in charge of the rotas, and it's always really tempting to put myself down on that service, but I have to share it out a bit because it is just lovely. It feels that the church has kind of just got to the edge of that line of being outside the building and into the community, and that's such an important thing for the church, to be just looking outwards and interacting with the wider community. So that's the first service. And then the second one is the one where John and Bill and others give us the carols in the trees, and that's such a joyful service. And that actually feels like the community all comes into the church, and there's no sense in which, you don't normally come. Everybody is welcome, everybody is included. And I suppose for me that just really underlines the message of Christmas, actually, that, you know, the sparkle of the trees is just a little sign of the absolute joy of God's love come down in Christ at Christmas. So it just feels like that's the crescendo of the whole event for me, where we're all singing our hearts out and being really joyful about Christmas.
we always missed having an outside tree for about the first 5 years, and the parish council generously gave us a grant to put power from the church to the churchyard, and that was installed with, as a minor problem, that the person installing it actually cut through the church gas pipeline. So we sort of not only lost gas for the time being, we also had quite a dangerous situation outside, but that was all fixed, and we had our first Christmas tree. The tree over the years has been paid for variously by the parish council and the youth club. We, the church, have never ever bought one. We supplied all the lights, and all the lights were actually given in memory of loved ones, departed ones, or even living ones. So we started with about 2,000 lights, and they've gradually fallen apart. We're now down to about 1,500, but it still looks pretty spectacular. And I think it's one of those things which was difficult to sort of set up at various times, but at the moment we are very pleased that Hathern Nurseries supply the tree, and they put it up for us. It goes up the first week in December and stays up all over Christmas, and I have to say it does look wonderful. It sort of gives us that Christmas feeling outside, and we're eternally grateful to the people, to the parish council and the youth club, who over the years have given us probably 15 massive trees.
And I'm glad to tell you that this year there will be a Christmas tree outside.